All right, welcome back. I got Ken Goodrich here back in my house again. Tom Howard. Ken's bought and sold dozens of air conditioning and plumbing shops, including his last one that you sold was Gettle. And they were doing, they're doing over a couple $100 million in revenue now and going strong. And I've sold a few companies myself, but honestly, going back, I literally took notes on what Ken would do when I was young, and I had not sold a company ever. I just owned my own air conditioning and plumbing shop and in Fresno, California. And Ken came out to buy my shop actually and had a good time, but Ken's kind of a legend in our industry, and we've been talking about acquisitions. The funny thing is Ken was here this morning. We got to talk about newest and coolest things he's doing, and you're in the generator business now, right?
Mm-hmm. Standby generators, and currently in 2 locations in Texas, headed to Florida next.
Wow. Well, we want to talk more about, last time we talked about acquisitions and things, but probably talk about like everyone wants to know, how do you source the deals that you find?
Yeah, so that seems to be the big mystery to contractors, but I'll say this, and I think you said it best, it's farming, not hunting. There can be a hunting element to it to kind of get it going, but it just, the way I look at it is you have to keep yourself involved in the industry, you have to go to the conventions, you have to go to the local, be involved in the local groups, HVAC or PHCC, or if there's a local ACA or something like that, you have to be involved in those groups. Even some best practice groups that maybe where there's people in your city that have memberships there, so you can gain the contacts. And then I've just made it a personal habit since I was first beginning business years ago to reach out and shake the hand of my competitor and talk to them, and make a friend of some sort, because you never know when they you need to reach out and say, hey, we have this customer problem, both of us have the same customer, something, or a technician, and it's easier to have a relationship with them. So I just made a habit of that, and then as I started acquiring companies and being more successful at it, I kind of got the name for, he's the guy that if you want to sell your business, it'll buy it.
Yeah.
And so you got to play that game. Now that said, let me say this. I've always looked at this, and I guess at Gettle we hadn't done it that much because our growth rate was such that we didn't have to depend on acquiring or tucking in companies, and that was probably a mistake, to be honest with you. And the way that I look at it, and the way that I think that growing contractors, HVAC plumbing contractors should look at it is, it's a marketing expense. And so what you're really doing is you're buying a wholesale amount of customers to come into your stable that you can sort out quickly and add your business mix and immediately grow. And the goal is to buy it for a lot less cost and a lot less arduous, and a better customer relationship you're buying than you would by acquiring a customer through the digital means, for instance, on LSA.
Yeah, we talked about on our last podcast making sure that you're looking at it as a cost of customer acquisition. How about when you're sourcing them? I've been.
But I was going to say, let me add to this. I believe that every small growing contractor should have part of their marketing budget is they're sending out email blasts and or letters and or even kind of FedExes to targets that targets in your prime city, to constantly remind them, if you ever want to retire, I'm the guy. If you ever want to retire, I'm the guy. If you ever want to, life changes, life happens, and if you ever need to get rid of the business, I'm the guy. I buy businesses. I buy these type of businesses. I'll make the best deal. It has to be a constant piece of your marketing.
Yeah, how do you get that list of contractors that you're going after? You just going through Google and just typing in AC company, Fresno, California, and just getting like 300 companies on
You
there?
can buy a list of any. You get the industry code. Like every industry has a code for the IRS, and you get that code for HVAC, service, residential, or I don't know how detailed it gets, but I don't remember the code, but you can find it. Ask your accountant, and then you get that code, and then you buy a list. You can buy a mailing list, email list, from mail shops and data shops anywhere. You get the list specific to the city, this county, the state, or any other state for that matter, and you can mail there. Another thing you can do is like in Nevada, where we reside, you can go to the local the state contractors board, and they will give you a list of whatever classification license that you're in.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of ways to get it. And by the way, in back in the day, we would literally have, I would hire disabled people that want to work from home, and I would pay them a little stipend, hourly rate, and then I would pay them a big commission to get a phone number, for instance. And all they did was go through phone books and dial.
Wow. That's pretty creative. I haven't sent out the letters. I've seen it 100 times. I'm like, I really should be doing that to get people to know it's top of mind, because it can't cost that much. If your town has you'd probably be surprised at how many air conditioning companies you have in town. Like you told me 1,700 in Vegas, something like that, 1,700 HVAC and plumbing home service companies in the Vegas area, which is shocking. I can name like 10. But even then, even if you have 1,700, it's still, it's going to cost you less than $1,000 to send them a letter every year, all of them.
I send them every quarter.
Yeah.
I just send them, and then, again, don't send the old stuffy letter that gets thrown in the trash all the time. You can change it up. It's a marketing campaign, right? It's a lead gen campaign. So no different than what you would with your HVAC or plumbing customers. You would, or any other home service, by the way, you would change up the ad, right?
Yeah. Well, you said you got to go to the conferences and things. What do you do when you're going to these conferences and sourcing these deals? I mean, you're basically just going there and introducing yourself and just making friends with them, or what do you mean by that when you say go to the conferences and go to the industry events?
Well, so you try to find people in the area that you want to acquire in. So obviously, if you want to keep it in your own city, that's going to be a small, maybe not be a small percentage, but at least spend some time socializing with these people and make a contact. And then I always broach the subject after a while. Once things kind of get, the relationship, the ice gets broken a little bit, and we start talking, I'll always say, hey, you ever thought about selling your business? What's your plan with your business? You're going to operate it until you die? You're going to have your kids? What are you going to do? And then, start planting seeds.
I got it.
And by the way, one of the greatest sources that I've used to source deals is the vendors. And so, you get in good with a couple of territory reps that, that kind of know what's going on. And,
your suppliers.
Your suppliers. And so both on the credit side, so you go to the credit managers and say, hey, anybody who's not paying their bill or struggling, I'm happy to come in and maybe take them over and help and get them caught up, so I can help you both. If you can kind
of. You're such a nice guy.
Yeah, so you can share that, or the territory managers, the sales guys who are out beating the street every day. They know who's struggling. They know who's retiring. They know who's getting divorced. They know who wants to sell. They know it all. So. I've had a network of those guys for years, and most of my big, really good, juicy deals have come from the vendors.
Wow, that's awesome. So, yeah, the funny thing is, I was going to mention on this, one of these ones that we merged with, acquired, whatever, it was Dustin Miller, at Comfort Now down in Visalia. They're like 45 minutes south of us, and we made a great deal, and both of us are going to do pretty well on it as we go to make our exit next year. And he the funny thing is we went to conferences together, and on one of them it was the Inc. 5000 conference, and they were all booked up except one room, and so it was a 2-bedroom suite, and we just shared the hotel room. We were like, whatever, and we're supposedly fierce competitors, but we shared our price book on that trip, and people are always afraid of like showing their financials. It's like showing their prices. Like, I don't care. I mean, in mine, my HVAC equipment was higher. His ductwork was higher. I was like, dang, you could get 12 grand for a duct system. Well, I can get 12 grand then. So I went back, I raised my prices, made some more money. He changed his prices, made some more money. In the end, we ended up merging together, and it was half. I bought out half his company, and then the rest we merged with my company, and so he got a few $1 million up front, and then he's going to get a lot bigger payout for the rest of his equity. And it was just, I think contractors are a little too tight-lipped and like, oh, I'm not sharing my secrets or whatever. I don't think there's many secrets in this industry left. I mean, it seems like most people are doing everything anyway. It's like,
well, there's a lot of secrets, but I will say this, like I have been, I have been free with my information from the very beginning, for decades, and I use it as my currency to make contacts and make friends, and because I learn as much from everybody else as what I give out. So I've always done that, and what I learned from that is, I've pretty much laid out all kinds of my key fundamental tools for success over the years, and not a lot of people have grabbed them and done anything with them. So I don't think you have to worry about so much sharing your ideas and concepts, because having a conversation and then transforming that into action is a whole different journey, and most people can't make it. Like, you are probably one of 3 or 4 people that I've ever got what I was saying on this acquisition front and have executed, and I would say in some cases better than I ever have. So you're one in a million, and there's a couple other guys who've done it too that have worked closely with me. But after that, I haven't seen many people do it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm saying I wouldn't worry about sharing ideas with other contractors, because the likelihood of them using it against you is very, very, very slim.
Yeah. So let's say you source the deal, they call you up. So let's say it's one of them that got your letter over the years, or it's one of them that you met at a conference and you said, hey, if you're ever looking to get out, like, let me know. They finally call you and say, I'm looking to get out. What do we do? At that point, what's your initial reaction? How are you handling the deal from there?
So, I usually have a form on my laptop, a lead form. My team does too. If a lead comes to them, they fill out some initial questions like, what's the company name, blah, 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 years in business, estimated, revenue if they'll tell you, number of employees, just some fundamental stuff so you kind of know what you're up against, reason for selling, that kind of stuff. And kind of get an idea what we're up against, and then you plan the meeting. So the meeting usually is like a lunch or something, and then you go to lunch and you talk to them, and so that initial meeting really is about making a friend. And there's some key aspects to that everybody needs to understand, and I wrote about this in my book, which is,
Which book, by the way?
The E-Myth HVAC Contractor. Why most HVAC companies don't work and what to do about it.
By the way, I read that. I read that. I bought the book and read it like a year ago, 2 years ago. Something. It was right after you came out with it, but it's a great book. But
thank you. So what I wrote about though is, here's what you need to understand when you're doing an acquisition. These tuck-ins, these smaller deals. You're essentially buying a man and woman's or a woman's life's work, right? It's very personal to them. To us, it may just be business, but to them, it's an extremely personal thing. And they want to be able to choose the successor or feel good about the successor. Sometimes it's a fire sale, it's a desperate sale, it's a little dirty. But for the most part, when you're dealing directly with the founder or owner, it's personal and you have to treat it as such. So be very careful how you talk to them. I always compliment them, and I compliment them, and it's sincerely. I compliment them for their years in business, what they've achieved, things like that. Because look, while I've had a certain level of success in business, I don't think that anybody who has less success but still been in the game and put up the fight and got to a certain level is any less, more or less than me. I just think like we're all playing this game, and my score happens to be higher right now than yours, but that doesn't mean that you get as much credibility for showing up and playing the game.
Yeah.
So you got to treat them that way. And then, maybe they'll tell you things that are, you would think is old school, doesn't work, bad idea. But I never I never give a negative commentary on anything they say. Like, oh, that's stupid, or oh, we tried that, that doesn't work, anything like that. Just, if you don't agree with it, don't say anything. And just be, you just have to be complimentary on what they built. I see value in what you built. I see value in your life's work. Let's make a deal.
All right. So sounds like first contact.
Let me finish with this last thing.
Yeah.
A lot of guys come in and they go, oh, they get afraid by the price. And I always ask this question: what do you think the business is worth? Okay, and that's in this first meeting. What do you think the business is worth? And inevitably the old owner usually speaks a number that's way out of
approximately
range.
$2 to $3 billion.
Yeah, so it's ridiculous. And so a lot of guys get scared off at that point, but I never got scared off at that point because I'm like, well, it's just a negotiation. We'll start there. And then if it's outlandish, I just say, well, I bought a lot of businesses, or when I never bought a business, I said, look, I've done a lot of study on the matter, and a business is bought and sold on a multiple of earnings. So, it is I didn't invent the formula, but it is what it is. But right now, it does sound a little high. But let's look at it and we'll see what we can get to.
Yeah.
I always say, one, what do you think it's worth? And if the price seems ludicrous, I'll say, seems a bit high based on the fundamental formulas of buying a business. But let me look at the stuff. I will give you a fair assessment.
So what you're saying is, initial contact. One, you're trying to make a friend. You're trying to make it easier. Number two, you want them to tell you first what they think the business is worth, so that's going to give you an idea. Any negotiation, right? The first person to talk loses. So that's a piece of what Ken just said. He's getting them to talk first. Number two. So number three, and this is another piece that's really, I don't think people see it a lot when they hear you talking, is the other thing that you're trying to get to is to get them to give you the numbers. So when you're building a friendship, that's getting them open enough to talk to you and share numbers. For me, I'm willing to share numbers no matter what, but like for a lot of people, they're worried about that. So you're trying to build a friend, show respect, that kind of stuff. Number two, ask them what the business is worth. But then the way you came up with that is they come high or whatever. It's like, oh, no problem, might be a little high or whatever. Like, okay, these businesses are valued based on the earnings, so we're gonna have to find out what the earnings are. So let's look at the numbers and see what's going on. So the way you ran that is automatically getting them to the next step, which is give you the numbers on the business to see what it's worth.
Right. And so I don't usually ask them to bring numbers with them on the first meeting. They'll contact me through a letter or my reputation or something, and we'll start there. So let's get together and talk about it. And then you're kind of breaking the ice, you're building the relationship. Then what is it worth? Then your price conditioning a little bit. It doesn't sound like it's worth that, but give me the stuff. I will give you the fairest assessment I can. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to steal this thing. I'm just trying to get to the fair market value.
Yeah. One thing I ask them usually in the beginning is that what are they wanting to do? Because at that point, I'm really trying to figure out what they want. Because some of them just want, I want to be able to retire. Well, when they say that, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I could buy this on terms and make them payments over $100K a year for a gazillion years or whatever it is. There's other times where it's like, oh, I'm tired. I want my employees to be taken care of. When they say that, I'm starting thinking, okay, well, maybe I look at, I'm basically trying to figure out how I'm going to get what they want. So when I do see their numbers, am I trying to build something for their employees a long time? Am I trying to give them payouts over time? Sometimes they're like, hey, I want to sell this because I want to go. We had this one guy who wanted to go work in the race cars in Texas or something. I said, hey, all right, for him, I know that he needs some cash up front. So I'm looking at like, what do they want?
What's going to trip their trigger?
Yeah. And these ones, like you said, it's a sales thing. So it's like, in any sales piece, you're trying to figure out what they want so that when you give them an offer, it fulfills what they're asking for. Sounds stupid, but like, at the end of the day, just running out there and throwing money on the table is sometimes the dumbest thing you can do. I mean, if they're willing to go and they say, hey, I just want a guaranteed income for the next 5 years, well, I can do that, and it's actually easier for me because I don't have to go to the bank and borrow money. If you're like, hey, I just want my employees to be taken care of, okay, let me figure out how to take care of your employees. Just like figure out a way to give them what they want, and if you do that and get them what they want, then you might get a better deal on your end as well. So next thing is like evaluation. So let's say they give you the numbers. What are you doing then? Like, what are you looking at on the income statements and balance sheet or whatever, and what's important to you, and how are you coming up with your number?
I don't pay a lot of attention necessarily to their operating expenses because we're generally not taking any of that stuff. And then,
that's assuming that you're tucking it in, right? So you're going out and buying a company nearby and just bringing yours.
Yeah. So if you're tucking it in, I don't really pay a lot of attention to that stuff. I'll look at it just to see if there's any innovation. I mean, are they doing something better than we did or do? But we always run a very, very tight ship, so not usually have I seen anybody get the buying power that we've ever had. But I'll check it. Obviously, you look at the net profit, and many times there won't be any net profit. So on these small deals, on these small tuck-ins, which is built, it's pretty much been the foundation of everything I've ever built. Those tuck-ins, it's really about how many customers, how many calls do I think I can glean off this base for the first year or two to start to capture the additional revenue and get the momentum that creates with getting a few new techs, get a few new trucks, getting your brand out there more, kind of getting the momentum of the business up and going.
Yeah. When you're looking at that, you're looking at like, what would it cost me marketing wise to acquire these customers versus, we talked about in the other podcast, it's like, versus how much do I got to spend to just buy it from this company?
Right.
Yeah.
Really that's the essence of it. And then here's what you need to understand too, is, okay, I've had guys come back and say, well, I mean, if I can buy them, if my digital campaign is so much more effective, why would I go to the trouble of buying that? And I would say, well, one, it's a mass of customers that you can immediately, you have a reason to market to. You have a legitimate reason. I bought the company, I'm taking over, I'm your guy, I'm going to do it as well, or if not better. Communicating with these people and starting to cultivate a bulk of business.
So you're going to send out like a mass mailer for that? You're going to do outbound calling? What are you gonna do?
All of the above. And it's really about, you got to try to, you have to zero in, and this is after you buy the business, right? You have to zero in this customer base. You can say, okay, we're going to have some attrition on customers. People hate change, people hate change, and I usually just cut the customers in half. And I'm not saying when someone says customers, I have 27,000 names in my database. That's not a customer. A customer is their club memberships plus anybody that's not a club that have done business with you in the last 2 years is the way I look at it. Maybe you can stretch to 3, but I kind of look at the average number of service calls for 2 to 3 years, and I say, okay, that's my universe of customers that I think calls that I'm going to get. Then I cut it in half, and then I apply my metrics to it, which means here's my average tickets for demand service, and here's my average tickets for maintenance service, and my conversions to replacements on those two.
Yeah. I just figured out an interesting way in service time I was running, because we were trying to figure out what percentage of customers we actually retain. So I went back a few years, and I said, okay, I went back to like 2019. It's 2024 now. I ran a report, and it was a customer report, and I wanted just ones with revenue. So I brought in customers that we'd actually run a call. We actually sold them something above a certain amount. Then I said, okay, I want to see, one of the data sets you can put in is like, when was their first call with you? And so I said, okay, first call, and I filtered that to be January 1, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. And then I had another column that had last call. Well, I ran that first one. I showed, okay, that year I had like 6,800 new customers. Oh, also I wanted new, not existing. So that's another column you can put on the report. And I said, new customers, first call that they had with me was in 2019. Then I had another column that said, when was their last call? Well, I didn't filter the last call yet, but then I changed, I ran the report again, but this time I put same report with all those things, but then I filtered the last call between 2020 and 2024. Meaning that out of those first one, those 6,300, 6,800 or something like that, how many of them actually had another call between 2020 and 2024? So just trying to see how many actually retained outside of my customers. And the crazy thing is, it was only like 2,800. And I was surprised. I'm dealing the mid 40%, 45% customer retention rate. And I do have plumbing, so I know that I can go back multiple times, even if I sold them all the HVAC stuff. But I think it's interesting there that, like, when you're asking about existing customers, you're saying club memberships or customers that you've actually done business with in the past 2 years, meaning that hopefully they retain some of them. So let's say in that, when you're running your valuation, what percentage of customers do you think you can actually retain? If you buy a company and they've got low prices and everything else, what percentage of those when you're doing your estimation, what percentage of those do you think you're going to retain?
Well, you brought up a good point, low prices. So be careful about doing a tuck-in with somebody who just doesn't get it completely and is running around charging $70 an hour or something, because those customers...
Or anyone charging time material.
Yeah.
At all.
If the time material looks like a decent ticket, you could probably get away with it. But yeah, it's just a different animal, and you got to understand, you're not going to retain a lot of those customers. So I'd still do the deal based on what you think you can get, but you have to really say, I'm only going to grab 25% of this customer base at best. The rest are going to run like the hills, because the only reason why they're doing business with this guy that's working out of his house, that can't get to him for a week at a time and not really great service, is because he literally does it for free. Yeah. But you're not going to do that. You can't do that. So that's an interesting thing. That's one thing, that a caveat that you need to understand. But what I do is I'll do a study of, I'll take the average of the last 2 years of calls. I'll filter out the replacement sales in terms of number of calls. I'll filter out any work that we don't want to do. I'll keep it.
You're filtering out replacement sales because you figure you're not going to be able to sell them again.
Yeah. So I'll just grab, here's actual service calls, take the units out, and any maintenance agreements that you can kind of do a swag on to say, well, here they have 2,000 maintenance agreements. They ran 1,000 maintenance calls, so there's still 1,000 other customers that we can get to, right? And so I'll come up with that number, and then we cut it in half. So let's say for this conversation, it was 2,000 ran calls. I cut it in half to 1,000 ran calls, but then I apply my metrics, meaning here's my average tickets and conversions, and that gets me to this revenue. And usually our pricing, which I deem as the proper mathematics to price to make a business work, usually yields more revenue than they did with 100% of the customer base.
Yeah.
So then I'll go back and then I'll do that with 50% of the customer base, or it's not customer, 50% of the average rant calls, 33%, and 25%. And usually I can get all the way down to 25% and still have a very similar revenue than that we're doing. And
That's
so then you take that revenue and then you back it into
whatever your cost of customer acquisition is. So if normally, people say, oh, well, I only spend 6% on marketing, so that's fine. Keep in mind, when you're spending 6% on marketing, you're blending that. So you've got existing customers and new customer acquisition. So when I'm looking at new customer acquisition, usually I'm spending 15%, 20% acquiring a new customer, because I'm going to sell them the next year, and that's going to blend my marketing percentage down.
When you look at your percentage on your P&L, you're not counting the repeat customers that didn't come from a marketing source, that they just use you anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's usually 50%. So your marketing cost actually doubles. If you're running a 10, it's really a 20. And so I usually kind of.
So if you're saying if you're running at 10% cost of marketing, your new customer acquisition is probably 20% cost.
Yeah, or better. But let's call it 20. I try to instinctively that's kind of my double check number. It's kind of like your 50% margin, right? And your gross margin. It's not necessarily the number that you need to operate by, because you really need to look at your gross profit dollars, but it's still kind of an indicator I'm headed the right way.
Yeah.
Follow me? So I target not to go over about 20%.
Yeah.
So let's say for this conversation, and we say I had a business that ran 2,000 calls.
You cut it in half to 1,000.
And then that usually gets me more revenue than what they did before, maybe as much as double.
So let's say your average ticket on that is $5,000. That's $5 million of revenue that you're going to generate.
Mm-hmm. So
how much would you pay for that business if you thought on your metrics you could generate $5 million in revenue?
Well, I would pay up to $1 million over time.
Yeah, because that's 20% over time.
Yeah.
So you could do $500K the first year, $500K the second year. You've talked also about paying them a percentage of the revenue they come in, which I love that. I've done a couple of those deals where you just say, hey, look, like you only did, realistically, a business like that, they probably only did $3 million in revenue. Now, they don't know that you can do $5 million in revenue on it, but that's fine. That's the value you bring to the table. It's not their value. So you think you can bring 5. So you're sitting here saying, well, I'm willing to pay 20% for that. I'd like to pay 10% for that. So I'm willing to pay them $500,000. Even if they got no profit in their business, nothing like that.
You really don't pay any attention to. You need to look at their pricing. You need to look at their gross margin just as a test to see how much rub am I going to get with a customer base to charge the right price. How much friction am I going to have there? And if I think I'm going to have a lot more friction, then I'll back it down to the 33% of the base, because you're going to lose some.
Yeah. So at that point, you pick that business up. They're doing $3 million in revenue. They're not making any profit. You offer them $500K, maybe $750, maybe $1 million, and it could be upfront, but it could be over time. You might be able to do that. And Then you turn around, you start doing $5 million in revenue, and you've got 20% EBITDA on the bottom line. That's $1 million that first year, and probably $1 million the second year as well. So you're getting a couple $1 million of profit. You paid him $500K, maybe $1 million. And then, by the way, when you go to sell that business, that $1 million a year of profit, let's say you're getting 10x on it of just that piece, you're getting $10 million.
Yeah, one of the best, most profitable deals that I ever did was I bought a company, and they were a $6 million business, and they were having trouble, and the bank was calling their line of credit. They owed $360,000 on it, and they were calling their line of credit and threatening to take their houses and all this stuff, right? And so I came in and I said, I will pay the line of credit. I'll pay the line of credit, and I'll give each of you $100,000, and you guys can keep 20% of the business. There's two guys, so 10% each, 10% of my company at the time. Actually, not my company. We kept as a separate company, so they kept 10% interest, and that, you know, the goal was we were going to grow it, and they could recoup some of their investment or make a profit, right? So we did the deal. I got a loan for 100%, so the 360 plus the 2, so 560. I got a loan, and then 90 days later, we sold the business for $4 million.
Wow, it's incredible. And that's nuts.
And this was an acquisition that the company was doing on my prime company, my big company I had, and they said we will give you we'll buy the acquisition one on a pro forma basis. So just like we're talking about, they can say, okay, I see the revenue, we can extrapolate what profits could be, we will pay you based on that. So we didn't even have to operate it very much until we sold it.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So you're going into this. I think what a lot of people are going to be asking is, what if they come to me and say, hey, the business I'm trying to acquire, this guy, he's got like 14 trucks, and he thinks even the trucks are worth more than what I'm offering him. How do you handle that objection?
Well, what I've learned over the years is you try to make as turnkey and easy as possible. So you try to say, even if you don't want the junk, take the junk, right? If the guy seems like he wants to get in and play with the junk and sell it himself, great. That's one less hassle you have to do. But you don't want the junk. You don't want the old junky trucks. You don't want the old junky tools. You go buy new shit with new profits you're going to make on this opportunistic acquisition.
So let's say you're buying this company for $500K, and he's got 14 trucks, and he thinks they're each worth $25,000 a piece. So he thinks they're going to be worth $300,000, $320,000, $350,000 for the trucks, and you don't even want the trucks. I'm thinking I'm going to go and say, hey, here's the great deal. You get to keep all the trucks. You get to.
You can try that. You can try it. And I've been burned on that before, where they're like, it's too much hassle, blah, blah, blah. So you just kind of try to come to terms. But what I've been able to do is, you find some truck wholesalers. You find even like Enterprise sometimes have bought the fleets from the deal. So they will give you a price. And it's pretty easy to say, well, I went to the authority, Enterprise, they say this is what it's worth. Let them handle it. Or let, some of these used work truck kind of companies come and take it. They're gonna pay a wholesale price, but at least you can get it off your
off the books.
And listen,
so it's
all about making it. It's all about making it very simple for the seller. If you make it difficult, like I said, it's very emotional. Emotions are very high. You just have to make it as easy as possible. Don't worry, I'll take the trucks, but you make sure you have an outlet for the trucks the day they show up.
Yeah.
One of my, I put this in my book too. One of my favorite stories was I bought this business in Las Vegas, and it was the founding company, the foundation of the business, Yes, air conditioning and plumbing, that I built there. And it was this little small shop, guy and his son, a couple guys, and they had these milk trucks, like these little mini milk trucks. They looked like an old milk truck, but it was a 4-cylinder little
weird
Japanese looking thing, right? And he was so proud of them, and he was so proud that they didn't have air conditioning in Las Vegas. And, because he said the guys would catch cold if they sweat too much and they get in the cool air conditioned truck.
Oh my gosh. Driving around 110 degrees in Las Vegas.
And they had they were like kind of UPS trucks. They were box trucks. So the door slid, Yeah. So you see these guys riding around, no seat belt, driving this little 4-cylinder thing, barely get up a hill, and with the door wide open,
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, I knew by that time I had enough broken deals because I was too cavalier with the sellers that I knew to keep my mouth shut. And he was very proud of those trucks. So I'm like, yeah, I like those trucks. And what's the great thing about the trucks is they're so unique. People know them. Oh yeah, people know my trucks everywhere. So you just kind of go along with their shtick. But and then when we took a tour through his warehouse, he was showing me these motors. Now I am a lifelong air conditioning technician, been in the air conditioning business all my life, so I know the pieces and parts of the business. And he's showing me these old motors, and he's like, see this motor here? I'm the only one who has them. It's for these particular Carrier units that were made in the late 50s. And I got them, and I'm thinking, if anyone has one of them units, they're getting a new one. But I said, okay, great, that's a great thing to have, that motor, right? And he showed me these giant brass reversing valves. Like reversing valves when they first came out, they were like this big, all bolted together brass things, And I have these too in case anyone needs it. I'm thinking.
How'd the condensers look when you had reversing valves that big? Were they just like giant? I mean, you had to fit a reversing valve in there in the compressor compartment. And
when it was back then, the compressor was inside the house.
Oh my gosh!
It's like a water source heat pump,
yeah.
And then the condenser was just out back.
Wow.
But anyway, which was a lot bigger than today's stuff.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I go through this process with him. I buy the business, and then as soon as we close, 2 roll-off boxes show up, and a car carrier shows up, and so little milk trucks go on the car carrier, and brand new Chevy vans come off, all lettered up, ready to go, and then and then I said, got the warehouse. So they literally threw all that stuff away, and it broke my heart when this happened. The next day I went over there, this was on a Saturday, and the guy was literally in the salvage bins pulling the stuff out. He's like, well, if you don't want this, I want it. I said, okay, yeah, help yourself to it. I should have asked you first.
Yeah. I've only had one deal ever where I actually wanted to keep the trucks, and it was like the guy had 6 trucks that were all under 50,000 miles. They're all like brand new. I mean, but the guy, you could literally eat off the floor in his shop. He had people mopping the shop floor. The whole shop had the floor was epoxy. So it was like a beautiful, I mean, it looked like a showroom in there. And he had his trucks parked inside, so they're all like pristine. He had a backhoe that looked like he had cleaned it with a toothbrush. It was just like perfect. But every other single deal that I've gone into, I mean, the trucks are 150,000 miles, 200,000 miles. They're like, you never know when they're going to break down. And on those ones, I mean, like Ken said, if the guy wants to take it, great. That's fantastic. And a lot of times they think they can get a lot more for it. So it's like, okay, that's fine. But if they give you any pushback at all, you just want to like back off. Like, yeah, I'll take all the trucks. I've had one where I literally called an auction house And as soon as I closed it, I had the auctioneer go over to the shop and set up the auction right at the shop. So I never even had to move the trucks, didn't have to touch the trucks. He actually sold all the guy's sheet metal equipment was like $30,000, so it got me $30,000 off the price, right out of the guy's shop.
Yeah, there's usually some stuff that you can, make some fast deals, but you make them right up front. You don't store the crap. While you're doing your due diligence, you go set it up to sell the sheet metal shops, any vans, any trucks. You get it all set up at a wholesale and get your cash back as fast as you can and go to get in the business. Because listen, all you're really buying, you're buying the database, the customer list. You're buying the URL, just to kind of keep that name out there where customers could go find somebody that knows something about their system, and the phone number. Those are all you're buying, and the essence of what you're buying is you're buying the relationship between the customer and that brand name. That's what you're really buying, because they have a trusted source. You got to carefully get involved in that relationship to where you become the trusted source. A cold lead that you get off of LSA, or let's just say LSA or digital lead, people are still skeptical because they don't really know you. They've never done business with you. If you do this correctly with these tuck-ins, you can communicate to the customer before they need you. The old owner can communicate to the customer so they know what's coming. It's not a surprise, and you are blessed by the old owner, the person they trust. So it's the ultimate referral. And you know how people treat referrals, right?
Yeah. That's great.
So you get rid of the crap.
Get rid of the crap. I just figure out how to put that in there because it happens all the time. I mean, especially because it's emotional. They're like, oh, look at all my inventory. I'm like, oh my gosh. Inventory to me is like a 4-letter word. Like, I don't even want to see it. I got to pay somebody to manage it. I got to do all this stuff. Like,
and usually it's just crap. Like, it doesn't fit into your catalog. It doesn't fit into your price book. And, it's just some old motors that
I found
some guy could make them work.
I went into my shop and we finally cleaned it out after years. And I was small and running my business where I have this one motor that everyone needs, blah, blah. The truth is, no one even knows that motor's in the shop anyway. So if they get on that unit, they're going to order a new one. If it's some Carrier, Infinity, whatever, controller, whatever, they're going to order a new one anyway, so you're still going to have one in the shop, and you're still going to carry it. And two, I think that one of the biggest things you said was, hey, I don't care if it's a 50-year-old unit that we go to and we happen to have that motor. If it's a 50-year-old unit, I need to sell them a new unit anyway, because all the other things are going to break on that thing. So why would I even carry that motor in the first place? It's just a ton of waste.
Yeah, because as soon as you touch that thing, you own it, and it's just going to be a money pit for you.
Yeah.
Well, that's not our model. That's not our model. Our model is that we're offering better solutions for the customers to, energy efficient, more comfort, more reliable.
Yeah.
And there's nothing about a 50-year-old unit that does any of that.
Yeah. So you've got that going on. Now you get to the point where you come to evaluation, you want to give a proposal. Can you talk about your proposal process and how you're presenting to them and how that goes?
Yeah, so I got a form of this proposal way back in the early 2000s, and I got it from Lon Castle, who was from Airtime 500, and who's done a lot of acquisitions in his career. But anyway, what he suggested, and I had done a bunch of acquisitions before he told me this, but I really liked this one, so I'll give him credit where credit's due, and it was 3 choices. So we have an LOI that we developed that basically said, okay, here's 3 choices of the enumerations on how we're going to buy this business. Here's 3 choices on the purchase price and the terms. Some people, like I always say, your price, my terms, your price.
Yeah.
So the terms are extremely important in this thing, because ultimately what you want to get in here is you don't want to put a lot of capital out, because it's on the FCOM. It's a bet. I'm making a bet that my team and I can go attract these customers into our stable, hopefully get club memberships right away to a decent number of them, so at least we got them locked in, so we know that our investment is safe, and then we go and we start operating with those customers. So I give 3 choices, and the 3 choices are in 3 categories. 1, cash price. Cash at close, I'll pay you this much.
I love the 3 choices, by the way. You're doing good, better, best, just like you would do to a residential homeowner. You're giving them 3 options.
Exactly. So it's 3 choices. 1 is just a lower cash payment. It's like, and the way I look at it, like, all right, if they take this, I'd hate to put out that much cash, but I know I got a bargain, I got a winner. So it's a cheap price. And I usually say, let's say for this conversation, it's $150,000. I usually hold back, 10%, 5 to 10% for warranty claims, anything that pops up that goes over and above your terms of purchase. And let me say that on that point. Don't worry so much about going back and taking care of warranties unless they have given people 10-year warranties on their equipment and not collected the money for it and not bought the certificate from the manufacturer. That's a problem. And I've dealt with that one too. But so just be careful about how they've handled their warranties. But you are going to do some warranties that you're not going to get paid for. You just have to look at it like, here's an opportunity for me to bond myself with this customer for the future, and just do it.
That's the cost of doing the acquisition in the first place.
So I go a lower cash price, then...
Well, by the way, if you're doing the warranties, if you had acquired that customer through traditional means, you're going to have some warranties anyway too. So either way, you're acquiring customers at similar cost.
You got to take the good with the bad. Just make sure that you protect your downside with the bad. Meaning, like I said, we bought some businesses that the guys went out and sold 1,000 units, gave them 10-year warranties, but never bought the warranties from the manufacturer. And the customers are waving that at us, and usually we just deal with it and take care of them. If it's really a ridiculous number, we'll push back some, but that's one thing you got to check. Okay, and we'll give a list of things on your site. They should watch for. But look, so it's low cash price, a smaller down payment, and payments, which the price goes up significantly. So let's say if it was $150,000 purchase price with the low cash price, I might pay $250,000 with terms, because I know that $250,000 is probably the right number to get them to bite, but I want the terms. I'll give you cash right now, but if you want your price, it's my terms. So I might go $250,000, $50,000 down, and payments over 36 months. I like 36-month payments because
it's free interest basically to you, right?
Well, yeah, and I don't pay interest. It's no interest payments.
That's one of your terms.
Yeah, that's my terms. No interest, but like it's 3 years, because after 3 years, you're gonna have those customers or you're not.
Yeah.
And psychologically, I just like to have it all done and put a bow on it and not carry that payment into past 3 years. Knowing full well that we've probably, I don't want to say eaten the base, but certainly have gotten the majority of possible revenue out of it.
Yeah.
So, and then the third one would be, which is my favorite, is a royalty payment. Now, I always try to give them some money down so that at the closing table they get a check, $50,000, $100,000. It depends on relative to the value.
Don't go too far, because you just mentioned the royalty payment real quick there, but can you go over real quick, and you said your favorite one. What's the royalty payment?
So royalty payment is where we would say, okay, we're going to take your database, we're going to clean it up, meaning we're going to do NCOA, National Change of Address, scrub on it, which will take every customer and say, do they live there still? And if they still live in the city, it will give the new address. So at least they have some familiarity with that brand that you can try to go find those customers. And it will tell you who lives in that house now. So maybe the customer list may expand some.
Interesting. Yeah.
So now I have a clean list, and then for those customers who moved, for instance, or that just bought the house, for instance, hopefully you have the data to that house so you can make sure they understand, I have information on your house to make air conditioning or plumbing or electrical repair easier for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then you put that in a campaign in your Service Titan or whatever software you're using, and then you pay a monthly or quarterly, I try to do it quarterly, a quarterly royalty payment based on somewhere between 5 and 10% of the revenue that you collected off of those customers.
So how often do you pay that royalty payment out?
I try to do it quarterly. Sometimes guys want it monthly.
Yeah.
So, just like I said, if it all works perfectly and you cut the customer base in half, and I've cut the customer base in half, 50%, and ended up getting 78% of the customers. So that gives you a whole better lift. But if you pay 50% and then with your pricing and conversion rates, you actually do more revenue than the guy used to do, he's going to live pretty well, right? Let's say for this conversation, you give him 8 points, and you're able to generate $2 million off that list in a year. That's $160,000 he's getting.
And you're happy because you just paid 8% for all that revenue, and you only paid if you actually generated revenue.
Yeah, it's the greatest marketing.
And it can be great for them too, because they might end up getting more money.
They might get more money. They get some cash flow. It's.
And your cash flow is great because you're only paying when you actually generate the money, and your risk is super low.
Yeah.
I think this is important. Like in any business deal, in any investment, the lower the risk, the lighter the return. And so you're willing to pay a little bit more and get a little less return if your risk is lower, and you only got to pay if you actually sell it.
Yeah. So that is the most cash efficient and the best way to do it is to do a royalty payment. I always try to give them something up front. You don't have to, but I just feel my experience is it sweetens the deal. We're like, okay, well, I get something to tell my wife that I brought something from the business home, instead of just signing a paper. And treat them
more
fair.
Official at that point.
Treat them fair. You every quarter you have the meeting. You have a scheduled meeting, and you go through and you print him out the report, and you have the check ready, and have him sign that he approved it, he agreed to it, and hand him his check.
Yeah, we even since we run Service Titan, we gave the guy and on Service Titan typically you don't pay for office users, so we just gave him a username and password with very little permissions, but he could at least run his reports. And so he could log in at any time and see how much revenue was coming in from his phone number. And so we said, look, just give me your phone number. I'll put it over. I'll give you access. You can check every day how many phone calls came in, how much revenue was generated, and you're getting X percent. And on that one, we did 2 years. So he got a certain percentage for the first year, a certain percentage for the second year. And he would just log in and check. And I think we only paid it annually, actually, on that one.
I don't like going over about 2 years, though.
Yeah.
Because, look, like I said, if it's a small database, you're going to eat it. If you're on top of those customers, you're going to eat it. The revenue is they're going to spike, and then it's going to come way down and level off. So the leveling off period usually comes about 2 years, even 8. Like I actually kind of like 18 months better, but 18 months to 2 years, it starts to tailor off, and then
I'm sure you like 6 months even better.
Yeah, yeah, but then the checks get smaller, and when the checks get smaller, it gets a little more tense at these meetings. So, and then obviously they can't eat off it forever, right? You got to have a cutoff point.
Yeah.
But I think a couple of years, and you can show. It's easy to show the math. My expectation. Here's my math. I cut your customer base in half because I think we're going to lose a bunch of customers based on my experience. Maybe we'll get some more, which is to our benefit. With my service rates, my replacement sales, my conversions, all that, here's what revenue I project that I can do with it if I got the same number of calls. Your percentage, this times that equals that. So if all this stuff comes together, which have a track record of doing, you should be seeing money in this range, which is usually a lot more than either the cash price or the term price.
Yeah.
So you can show that it is. Now, it doesn't mean that sometimes it isn't. Sometimes, he did a bad job and none of the customers would call him again anyway, so there's nothing out of it. But at least in that side, in that form of the royalty formula, you protect your downside.
Yeah. So now you go in, you guys agree on a price or terms, whatever it is, one of your three options. Your three options is you got your cash price, then your middle one is like cash plus terms, you get your terms, and then the third one is straight royalty deal, which one thing I want to add to that is that I've used this as a sales pitch before, which makes sense. They're going to say, well, look, like they do $2 million a year in sales and they generate $100K in profit. So they're generating 5% profit, right? My sales pitch to them is, look, you can keep working real hard and generating 5%. I'll just pay you 10% on all the revenue and I'll increase the revenue for you. So I'll work hard with my team, get more revenue, and pay you double the percentage you're getting anyway, and you don't have to work for it for 2 years. And then at that point, it's like, by the way, that's going to turn into probably, can't make any guarantees, but probably, I don't know, $1 million instead of your $100,000 a year. So I'm going to pay you what you would have made in 1 year. I'm going to pay you 10 of that if this turns out in the royalty deal.
Right.
Which is great because they can get a fatter return. Nobody's going to pay them $1 million on a $100K EBITDA company. It's not going to happen. I'm not guaranteeing I will, but since you're taking all the risk and you're selling the business, I'm going to pay you up front something. I love that, by the way. Like 100% in agreement on that. So they feel like it really helps the deal go through too, But then you could make a lot more in the end. Let's just say though that you finish the deal, you get through, they agree to it, everything. Now it's time to close. What are some of the things that you're thinking about when you're going to close? How do you talk to the employees? How do you present it? Are you worried about employees leaving? That kind of thing.
In terms of tuck-ins, I have not seen anybody do a very good job at retaining the people. I haven't, and most people that I know that have done a lot of tuck-ins don't usually, the people don't stick. And I think it goes like this. Obviously for the kind of companies we run, the more evolved or sophisticated operators where we have the tools, we're running on Service Titan, we have it all bulletproofed and working, we understand how to price, we understand the financials, and we're growing our business every year, we have an exit plan, all the stuff. We have a higher level of accountability our employees have a higher level of accountability to the business than a mom and pop operation. And so, a lot of guys I call it just hide out. They hide out in these mom and pop businesses because there's no pressure. They're not making any money. They're not bringing home much for their family, but they have a very comfortable, low accountability work lifestyle. And so to try to bring them into a tightened up business where you have rules and you have standards and you have performance standards, they don't work well there. So I have not, it sounds dreamy to pick up people and technicians and stuff, but I haven't had them stick very often. I've had a few where I do have some of my really key people like Gettle that came from tuck-ins, but that's one case out of over 200 plus tuck-in acquisitions.
Yeah. Sometimes I get companies that they really want me to take care of their employees, and on those ones, I say, hey, look, like we'll give them a job and we've got great benefits and that kind of stuff, but I can't guarantee that they're going to stick around forever. And truth be told, I mean, I think there's maybe a half dozen. I've done at least, gosh, in Fresno alone, 10, 12, 13 tuck-ins, and I mean, we're talking like a half dozen. They're still there. People, not companies. It's just, you mentioned it on stage the other day. You said usually if the company's running poorly, and that's why they're selling, there's usually a reason why it's running poorly, and it's usually not because they had great people and great processes and everything else, or maybe they were good people, but the mom and pop shop was setting the standards so low that they're used to those low standards. You come in and bring the high standards. Now they don't want to work in those situations.
Yeah, this is a little drastic saying, but here's what I would say. Broken companies have broken people.
Yeah, it's tough to say, but in a lot of cases. And real winning people, they want to be on winning teams, and when they see that their company's losing, they go find a new job anyway before you ever acquire them. And so these companies kind of become magnets for these people that just don't want to hustle and don't want to do anything.
Yeah, so try. My suggestion is try to bring the people. But do your typical background check, and if they don't measure up, they don't. Don't take any people just to take people. You just basically you got to say, look, okay, if there's people. Now, most of these businesses that we're talking about in this tuck-in arena aren't going to have a bunch of people. So this is probably only 20% of the time this is going to happen. But if they had some people, you say, what I will do is after we close, we'll tell everybody the business sold, and then they can interview with the company, and what we will guarantee is we will guarantee a increase in their wages.
Yeah.
Of some sort as an incentive to come on. But then you interview them, and if they're not going to pass the drug test, the background check, the competency test, the sniff test, then you don't hire them.
Yeah.
Don't buy these things for techs. The techs might be ruined, so buy it for customers and go find techs.
The funny thing is, Tommy Mello was talking about on stage. Now, Tommy really takes care of his people really well. When he sold his business A1, 25 of his employees became millionaires the next day. And he gave a tremendous amount of stock and things to a lot of employees and took care of them before the acquisition. So it wasn't just like that to wait for the roll and for the next sale for them to make money. I really respect him for that. But he got up on stage and he said, you know what, I acquire a lot of businesses, and all the business owners, they always say, take care of my people, take care of my people, take care of my people. He said, you know what the interesting thing is, out of all the acquisitions I've done, you know how many of those business owners gave their employees something when the sale happened? 0. All the business owners want to say, take care of my people, take care of my people, take care of my people, but they don't want to take care of their people. And a lot of times I see that as like, I want to take care of my people. I've given equity packages to a lot of my employees. I have a different class of stock within my company for employee stock. They are going to be taken care of, but I think a lot of these businesses are failing because they talk about taking care of their people, but they don't want to take care of their people well anyway. They don't want to pay them for higher performance. They don't want to pay them performance pay. They don't want to make sure that these people have improvement plans and everything else. And so great people just are not going to stick around for that. And it might have led to some of the issues they had in the first place. I
had a guy that, he was selling the business, and he said, I want to take care of my people. Well, the same thing. And I'm like, you pay him like $9 an hour. Like if you call that taken care of, I got him. I'm good. I'll take care of him. But, in this particular case, maybe a year before he went to sell it, he talked to all the guys and convinced everybody to pool their money and buy 5 cows. Or not a cow. What a steer, like that. Where do you get steak?
Yeah, steers.
Steers, right? So 5 steers,
beef.
Right?
Head of cow.
Beef.
Yeah.
Okay. Wherever they come from, you get the point.
Yeah.
And so they're buying.
We won't play this podcast in Texas or Oklahoma or anywhere where people know what they're talking about. But go ahead. Yeah.
So, and they were going to buy it, and then they were going to sell them, and all make a profit, right? Well, and the guy had a ranch. He had the ranch, so he was supposed to take care of it. So they all pulled their money, and they bought the cows or steers or cattle. They bought the cattle, and they died.
Oh my gosh.
So right before he sold, they were all bitter because they all lost their money. And this, they weren't making a lot, and they, it was a meaningful amount of money to them, and they were all a little bitter. So, and they were all pretty good hands. I mean, these guys were sheet metal workers. They were really good. And so I said, I'll give you the cow money. I'll pay you back for the cows. And they all stuck with me. In that particular case, they stuck with me for at least a decade. And then I had sold the business. But he thought that was really taking care of the people, was paying his debt on the damn cow thing.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Well, so you've got it closed.
Let me tell you one guy.
No, these stories are great. Go ahead.
So I buy a business one day, and I go, we're at the closing table, and I said, hey, you must be very proud, huh? That you built this business, and now you're selling it, and you're doing well, and are you must be proud of your team. Are you taking care of your team or doing anything? And he goes, Ken, every one of them some bitches has broke my heart one way or the other, so they don't get shit.
Oh my gosh.
Which is the wrong way to do it, by the way, if you're ever selling your business. You really need to take care of your top people to kind of keep them in the game with you.
Yeah. So, anything else? I mean, I would put on there, you want to buy businesses and you want to keep them going. You want to retain those people. If there are key individuals, you want to put good packages in place to make sure they're retained and make sure they're there. Are there any other things that you want to say or?
Well, so look, warranty. The warranty thing's a big thing, so you have to define it. And what I got down to finally was I just said, we will charge you 20%, a 20% discount. We'll give a warranty number up front. I will take care of the first, I'm just making up a number here, the first $50,000 in warranty expense, and we'll track it. But after the 50, then you pay my street rate minus 20%. And the way that I justify it is say, my profit motive is 20% net profit, so you're actually just paying my true cost of business, not a profit.
That's interesting.
And that usually gets the trick done. I haven't had to push the warranty thing that much because there's really not that much warranty challenges that I've come across. I did buy one business in Austin that, he's the one who did the 10-year warranties and never bought them. They were with, some Japanese equipment that no one really knew how to fix and work on or probably install. So it was a headache. And so he kicked in pretty early on his warranty expense. And there was a rub on that, but we finally collected and we got it done. But it's really the problem with that is spinning your wheels. So look, it's the 3 prices. It's handling the warranty issues, what you're going to do with the staff and or any other assets. Okay, but when you're offering those 3 prices, it's for all of the tangible assets of the business. No liabilities. You're not taking any liabilities. And then you got to be very clear about the liabilities. You are not, this is an asset purchase agreement. By the way, there's some states like California, you can do an asset purchase, but you got to have this bulk sales agreement, and it's a little more complicated like everything else in California. So just know that you got to check with a lawyer who buys and sells businesses to make sure you're doing it correctly, because you could find yourself being dragged into some liability with a vendor or a customer or something that you had no.
So to be clear, it's
no part of.
In these cases, it's cash-free, debt-free deal. So in some cases, they're like, well, I got $1 million in cash in my operating account, and I only really need to have about $100K in there. And on the other hand, I got $500,000 in liabilities that I owe to my vendors. So in that case, you're saying, look, you take out the extra cash out of the bank because that's yours, and that stays with the old owner. But then, by the way, you need to pay off all your liabilities as well. You got to pay off all your debts and all the other things, and we're not taking any of that stuff. So
no, and then you're not even buying their corporation.
yeah,
You're just buying a list of assets. And even if there's assets you don't really want, like we talked about earlier, like the trucks, you put them on the asset list, but make sure you have a outlet for those the day after you close. They're all gone. Don't carry that crap with you. So you got warranties, you got the warranty issue, you have the assets that you're purchasing, that you're make it very clear. There's got to be legalese that says we are not responsible for any of your back debts, blah blah blah. And then one of the most important pieces you got to include in the proposal is that this guy, the buyer or the seller, I mean, is going to talk nicely about you. You know,
non-disparagement
clause, which also includes you're going to give him a cell phone, or you're going to pay for his cell phone. Ideally, give him your own company cell phone, because you can track it. And any customer that has a concern can call him and double check. And his job is to be pro company. Sometimes these guys get weird. Yeah, sometimes they get weird, and they get a little bitter, and they start down talking to new owners and defeating the purpose of the things. But if you have a royalty agreement with them, the guy knows. We've had guys who were reluctant to sell air conditioners. They just wanted to fix everything. They weren't confident enough to make the suggestion of a sale, so they didn't sell many. The majority of the ones they sold were, customers who just said, "I want a new one." And so, but when you're in the royalty arrangement with them, selling the unit is far better off for the guy, right? For the seller.
He has every reason to be making sure the company's running.
Make sure that we're getting the sell. So that's another good reason why you want to try the royalty agreement.
Interesting. Anything else you want on there?
No, I think those are the fundamentals, and why don't we just post one of my LOIs and agreements that I've used in the past. And listen,
Ken's agreed to give us his paperwork and post on the site. We're going to put it on the website for you guys so you guys can download it and see what Ken uses when he's doing these acquisitions.
Yeah. Now I'm with private equity that they have a very complicated agreements and such.
But your old one.
But I'm going to give the old one. And listen, I think simplicity is the key here. Everybody's got to understand the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Very simple. When you go to your asset purchase agreement, I have a very simple one. I threw it back at my attorney maybe 4 or 5 times and said, make it simpler. Make it simpler. Talk like a contractor. Don't talk like a lawyer. Make it simple. Until we watered it down till it kind of covered our ass at certain places where we knew we needed to, yet it wasn't so scary. And then, your proposal /LOI, same thing. Very simple, easy to read. Okay, I can understand this. Because I've had deals where we come in with a big multi-page, 10-page legal document, and they just get discouraged and they throw it in the trash.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Ken, for coming and doing this with me. We're going to post this online. Ken and I are going to be on stage at Pantheon 2024, which is at the end of this month. And we're going to put a QR code so you guys can scan it. You'll be on there. So if you're watching this now, you're probably at Pantheon 2024 and got this anyway. Glad to have you guys. Thanks for coming, Ken. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to do it. And, I'm sure that those of you who've took the QR code and got to this place from the Pantheon presentation, that this is a refresher. You go back on this, kind of look at the materials we give you, and you'll have a fundamental system in place.
All right. Thank you. And for all you that got here from the Howard Deals podcast, we appreciate you having you. Thank you so much.